highly respected writer on Vedanta and the history and growth of the Vedanta societies, Pravrajika Vrajaprana has written many books, a sample of which are My Faithful Goodwin, a biography of J.J. Goodwin, disciple of Swami Vivekananda, a portrait of Sister Christine, and Interpreting Ramakrishna, Kali's Child Revisited, co-authored with Swami Tyagananda. Pravrajika Vrajaprana was born in California and graduated from the University of California, Santa Cruz, where she also worked briefly as Associate Professor of Literature. In 1977, she joined the Sarada Convent of the Vedanta Society at Santa Barbara and took her final vows of sannyasa in 1988. As a renowned scholar in Hinduism, she is a very popular speaker and has given talks at many universities and interfaith gatherings, including our own here, we held here in 2017. Mataji was the Hindu representative at both the Dalai Lama's 2006 Gathering of Hearts, Illuminating Compassion Conference, as well as the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu's 2008 Seeds of Compassion Conference. The title of her talk today is Loving God, and there will be a Q&A afterwards. The other thing I have been asked is if you have your masks with you, put them on. Our resident doctor has informed us that there are a lot of viruses out there and people are getting sick. So if you have them, please put them on and turn off your phones also. Mataji, welcome. Thank you.
Oh my God, I'm so abysmally short. I kind of wondered who Diane was in, who's she talking about? I want to meet this person. Anyway, let us begin with a chant. Om asatoma sadgamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya Om shanti 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 Om. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. Well, y'all know I love being here. This is a really happy place for me. I have great memories of this place, and it's just the sweetest, coziest, most welcoming center. And I want to talk to you about loving God, because I like that topic, so y'all stuck with it. Okay, loving God is one of the best practices that we can do for realizing God. Or we can reframe it, given the context here, and say it's one of the best practices for self-realization, for self-knowledge. It's the same kind of process. This practice, as you know, is called Bhakti Yoga, and it's the most prevalent spiritual practice in the world. Why? Because it's the easiest for most people, and for many, many people, it is the most natural. Each of the four yogas has its own strengths and its own difficulties. Each of the four yogas are best for each individual person. Everybody's going to go towards one particular yoga they feel most comfortable with. Now, I'm well aware that the Vedanta Society here is kind of like central command for Advaita Vedanta. Got it. I know where I stand. However, and the lectures here are the best that you will ever hear on Jnana Yoga. No question about it. And they're the most compellingly and easily explained. And we all hear these lectures and go, yeah, I'm going to do that. That's so great. But Jnana Yoga has its difficulties just like every other yoga. To bring up one, Sri Ramakrishna's disciple, Swami Tyagananda, said that Jnana Yoga is meant for those whose minds have been withdrawn from sense objects. I don't know about you, but I couldn't get here without that latte. It was kind of pathetic. I was trying to say I didn't need one, but But it's like, if you want this thing up here to actually work, that, that smell of coffee, I still like my chocolate, preferably dark. So, and that said, I mean, we all have to, we all have to remember that we do have to withdraw our minds from sense objects. Remember that those sense objects won't be around for them when we need them, and that the joy that they give us, however wonderful, it's very temporary. So we always have to keep that in mind. But we always have to remember, too, that this body and the mind that we have are temporary rentals, and they're with us just a while, and to keep in mind how absurdly transitory they all are. Now, every yoga has its difficulty. Raja Yoga, which is that yoga to find that divine within our hearts through the process of concentration and deep meditation. Now, Swami Brahmananda, he has pictures here. Anyway, yeah, there. Tells us, yes, that such a person should meditate 16 hours a day. Okay. All right, that clears that up. A lot of people have a problem meditating half an hour, 15 minutes. Now, the reason is, I mean, apart from the nature of the human mind, it's like life right now is inherently stressful. We're getting all this feedback. There's no time when you kind of leave work and then it stops. No, it goes with you at home. There's never a time when we don't have to be on. The texts come in, the emails come in, and then we've got all these, the people have their CD on, or I'm dating myself. Okay, they have their MP3 device on. All these impressions are coming in. It's very hard when you're bombarded all this time to turn that off, to stop those outgoings. Okay, rewind, go inside. It's a very difficult process. I'm not saying it doesn't need to be done. It does. We have to start somewhere. But it's a more difficult practice than it appears to be. The goal of karma yoga is to realize the divine, as you know, through selfless activity, through selfless action. So that really means that every action that we do has to be done without a selfish motive, without any sort of expectation in mind. And it sounds wonderful, but it's very difficult to do. Because lurking somewhere is that expectation that you're going to say great, or a nod or a wink, some feedback that something that we have done has gotten some sort of approval, hopefully not disapproval, but we're sensitive to it. It's like, you send your niece a present, right? Nada. It's like, and then after a while you call up, hi, it's me. Did you get it? Your birthday present? Oh, you got it. Okay, just checking. Okay, well, talk to you later. It's really hard not to go there, right? Because, and you don't want to have it, but it's there. So of course we have to work on it. Of course, you don't want to go around thinking that the world owes us something. Because we really should just be able to do it to serve. Do it because it needs doing. Do it because it needs being done. And we are the agent. But it's a tougher yoga to practice. We're inherently active. We want to be busy. We want to be doing something. And so we think, that's the yoga for me, because I'm always out doing things. But it's way more difficult than it first appears. So all those yogas have their own difficulties. They all need to be balanced with one another. And no yoga is ever meant to be done by itself. Every yoga is meant to support one another, and they really bleed into each other and enrich one another. So every yoga sort of needs the support of the other. So then we come to bhakti yoga. So what's the downside of that? Well, becoming too emotional, becoming just a sentimental idiot over your chosen ideal, or worse, trying to say, my chosen ideal is better than your chosen ideal. My God's better than your God, and I'm going to force that God down your throat for your own good. That's the problem with bhakti yoga. It makes us fanatics. I've run into fanatic Vedantins that are just like, you can't even believe it happened. You should be, she was a German woman. You should be worshiping Ramakrishna like that. It's like, what? It's like, because their Führer said so, but we did color that. But it is possible, so we always have to remember that everybody has their own path, and every individual needs to have that kind of space. Swamiji was a great believer in giving freedom to people. Spiritual freedom is the most important thing, to give them that space, which means they have to give us that space as well. So what's the advantage of bhakti yoga? Well, we may not be like champion meditators, right? We also may not be free from every desire for sense objects. You know, that coffee smells good. And when we work, we may find that we have some sort of expectation. We can try to squish it. We can try to get rid of it, but we find that we still have it. So, but no matter what, we can all manage to love. No matter how feeble our meditation is, no matter how ridiculous we are about the presents we send, we can all, everybody loves somebody or something. I mean, even a total sociopath or a deranged person loves something, even if only himself or herself. So love is basic to who we are. That is who we are, is just embodied beings. Even mammals, advanced mammals, you see how tender they are towards their young. This is who we are. So why not use that power to realize God, to have that self-knowledge? If we all love, we all respond to love. And if we try to live without love, we just wither up. We really do. I was just horrified to read about those experiments where they take a young animal away from the mother and they put it in this little container and they just serve it something with a glove. And of course, the poor little thing either dies or becomes completely crazy. So we need that sort of, we need love, and we all give love, so why not use that power? You know, but on the other hand, it would seem like loving God is something different altogether. It's of a different order, because how can I love someone or something that I have no relationship with, that I've never met, that I've never had any encounter with? How do I love something that may be a figment of my imagination? Something that is just like something out there, rather than my very real girlfriend down the street, or my husband, or my child, or for my dog for that matter. There, at least, there is a give and take. There's some exchange, some relationship that's going back and forth. There's a reciprocity. So how do I have a reciprocity with some big amorphous something or other that may or may not exist, some divine maybe entity? How do we do that? Well, we do all the time, because we've never loved anything or anyone apart from God our whole lives. We just didn't realize it. There's a wonderful passage in the Pravrajika Upanishad that's one of the most beautiful things ever conceived or put to memory. The sage Yajnavalkya comes to his wife Maitreyi and says, Maitreyi, I'm resolved to renounce the world and to begin a life of renunciation. You know, that's a conversation stopper right there. And do you want coffee? And he said, I wish to divide my property between you and my other wife, Katyayani. Now, this incredibly wise woman, who is obviously Yajnavalkya's equal in spirituality, says, my lord, if this whole world were to come to me with all its wealth, would I gain immortality by that? It's like she goes right to the point. It's like she's not worried about, like, who's going to take care of me? It's like she goes to the ultimate questions right away. So, and then she understands, obviously, that there's nothing there that he's suggesting that's ever going to bring her any real happiness. So she knows nothing. From the beginning, she knows nothing out there is going to give her what she really wants out of life. Nothing. So Yajnavalkya says, no, wealth isn't good. He said, your life would be like that of the rich. None can possibly hope to attain immortality through wealth. It's like, how many thousands of years did he say that, and people are still trying to do it now? Still trying to get more, as if that has ever made anybody any happier than they were to begin with. So obviously Maitreyi knows this, and she said, then what need have I of wealth? Please tell me what you know of the way to immortality. Yajnavalkya, of course, is delighted with her discernment and her wisdom, that at this time, if he's telling her this, she goes right to the heart of things, and her mind has gone to a higher level, and immediately she asks for spiritual instruction, right then and there. Nothing like, oh, come on, how's this going to go for me? She doesn't want a temporal Band-Aid. She wants a lasting solution to the problems that have bedeviled us since the beginning of time. Give me a lasting solution. So Yajnavalkya says to her, you have always been dear to me, Maitreyi, and now you ask the thing which is the closest thing to my heart. Come sit close to me and meditate upon what I tell you. And he tells her, as you know, you can probably recite this along with me. It is not for the sake of the husband, my beloved, that the husband is dear, but for the sake of the self, obviously for the divine self within. It is not for the sake of the wife, my beloved, that the wife is dear, but for the sake of the self. It is not for the sake of the children, my dear, that the children are dear, but for the sake of the self. And he goes through this long laundry list of things that we hold dear: wealth, higher worlds, heavens, creatures. He said, the self, beloved Maitreyi, is to be known. Hear upon it, reflect on it, meditate upon it. And there we get the famous Vedanta dictum, Shravana, Manana, Nidhyasana, what we need to do to realize the truth. So Yajnavalkya the whole time is telling her that every time we love, whatever we love, whoever we love, and all this attraction that we have is nothing but divine attraction. We've never been attracted to anything but God. We've never loved anything but the divine. It has just been misdirected, making us think that it's that thing out there that I love, rather than this thing in here, which is the source of all love and all joy. When we love somebody, we don't love them for their body or their cute little nose or for their charming personality or for their funny jokes. We love them unwittingly, unknowingly, because the divine self within. And when we love somebody, we're simply acknowledging our oneness with them. And that oneness is the truth of existence. It's that basic fact, the basic rule of the universe, oneness with all. Now, the more we don't love somebody, the more we say, I have no oneness with you whatsoever. You're like that and I'm like that. You people are like this, my people are like this. And that's how we end up with hate, with anger, with frustration, with you people and our people, with social divisions that are rending this country and rending the whole world apart. This whole idea of who and what is worthy of our love. Who gets to get my love? Who gets to get my respect? Well, what did Holy Mother say? The whole world is your own. We don't make little artificial barriers and say, this is where I stop, and you people out there begin. No one's a stranger, right? No one's a stranger. Oneness is what love points to, and that's what the truth of Vedanta is. And that's what love is all about. It's all about oneness. The divine within is the source of all love, the source of all joy. And that's actually what we're loving the whole time. We just don't realize it. When we realize it, then everything kind of shifts on its axis. And then we can begin having really rich, meaningful relationships that do not disappoint us, that do not go sour, that do not leave us frustrated or just bored to death. That's when things really change. The goal of all spiritual practices, the goal of all yogas, is the realization of God, period. The realization of the divine within ourself, and that allows us to have the realization of the oneness of all existence. Now, obviously, the divinity within me is the same divinity within you, the divinity within all beings, the divinity that we share with everything in this universe. And love is a good place to start. Loving God is a very good place to start. Because no matter what, we can manage to love. We can love somebody. Now, the path of love doesn't automatically or necessarily appeal to people at first. You know, when I first got into Vedanta, I was deeply attracted to Advaita texts. They really, I would read these things and my heart would soar. And I think, that's it. That is the answer. That is just the best thing ever. And I would the exaltation that you get from reading these texts. I remember once I was 15 years old. I was sitting in the Santa Barbara Public Library. I was a sophomore, a junior in high school. And I walked to the high school from my last class, and I was waiting for my dad to get off work to pick me up. So there I was sitting in the reading room, and I walked to it, and they had some books on chakra. I just started finding out about Vedanta, and I thought, great, chakra, I heard that name. So I picked up a book, and I started reading, and then I read the sentence, Brahman and Atman are one. And I put the book down, I was like, oh! And I looked around, and I just want to say, everybody, Brahman and Atman are one. Stop whatever you're reading, it's stupid. Put that newspaper down. Brahman and Atman are one. And I looked around, and they were like, I was looking up. No, it was a guy I knew from school was there. I was like, he didn't care. And I thought, shall I go tell them? And I thought, they're going to think you're crazy, baby. Don't do that. But that's like that great excitement with having that kind of come into your mind. And it was like, I remember that tremendous exaltation, and that memory has never left me when I read that sentence. Because it seemed to me like, oh my God, all the pieces, everything just fell into a perfect, beautiful completion. So the problem with that is that knowing it intellectually is very different from realizing it. They're two different processes, two different things. It isn't to say you don't need to keep reading these things all the time, to drill it into our minds, to try to make it as much as a living reality as we possibly can. But unless it's part of our lived experience, unless we internalize it so much that it becomes a part of our lived, breathing experience, it's not useful to us. It has to become part and parcel of who we are. You know, I used to visit Swami Tyagananda often, our sage of Sacramento. He was well known as a japasiddha, perfected through the mantra. And he also had a profound knowledge of the Upanishads. And that is kind of like the greatest understatement of the year, because what the truths the Upanishads say is what was his own personal experience. He was a realized soul. So I was studying the Drisha Viveka with him. We were having a one-on-one in his little apartment. And we read these verses, and I asked him a question. I thought it was an ordinary question. He looked at me and went, "You are a bhakta." Busted. And it was done with great affection, but it was like he put Drisha Viveka away and went into his room and got his stash of his letters from Swami Pravrajika and started translating them for me one by one. Now, he didn't do that because he thought I was a complete idiot or a second-rate Vedantin who couldn't take in or understand what he was saying. He did it because he knew that what he was reading to me in those letters would have a deeper impact on me, would be more long-lasting with me, and would give me greater inspiration and greater resolve in my spiritual life than the text that we were studying together. That doesn't mean I didn't appreciate it, and I don't appreciate it. I do. What it does mean, it's not my first line of thinking, and it's not my first line of defense when the going gets rough. When the going gets rough, we go to our first line of defense. And I realized that wasn't it. It was, "You're a bhakta." So Sri Ramakrishna said that the goal of life is to realize God, to love God. And he said, bhakti, this love for God, is the one essential thing. And it's often said that loving God is its own reward. We're happiest when we love, and we're happiest when we receive love. Then we feel like a cat around a fire. And that's when we feel good. Swami Sarvapriyananda, who was the founder of our St. Louis Center, was one of the order's greatest scholars. He was a very, very learned man. And Swami Pravrajika was asked with something, he would always ask Swami Sarvapriyananda because he knew it. He knew it. And when I read the sentence, I was simply deeply, deeply surprised. He said, love of God is the very essence of spiritual life. He said, without it, religious practices are nothing but sheer physical and mental exercises. I was like, you said that? I was really amazed from a person like that. So it's important to remember that when we engage in bhakti yoga, we are not giving our brains away at the door. We are not, because we're balancing that with jnana yoga. When we practice Raja Yoga, we are balancing that with Karma Yoga. Our life absolutely has to be balanced. Every part of our life has to be included in our spiritual life, because unless our spiritual life is integrated into our life as a whole, nothing left out, then our spiritual life is really not useful to us. Every part of our life, we can't have our spiritual life over here and our secular life over there. We can pretty much do what we want. And this guy that's got the blinders on. It doesn't work that way. Or even to have a life situation where you're not including your spiritual life in that. Every part of our life, there's no distinction between secular and sacred. I think Nivedita said that very beautiful in her introduction to the Complete Works. Everything is divinized through the practices, the balancing of these four yogas. Now, the nice thing about bhakti yoga is that you kind of get a 2-for-1 sale with that. Because as Sri Ramakrishna said, everything can be achieved through bhakti alone. Those who want the knowledge of Brahman will certainly get it by practicing bhakti, the path of devotion. And as Sri Ramakrishna pointed out, he said, how can you love someone unless you know them? So that's included in it too. Now, the path of love is easier for many people because it's the easiest way to concentrate our minds. Because there's no better way to concentrate our mind on something than to love it or him or her. When we love someone or something, we can't keep our mind away from it. It goes to it like a magnet. No matter where we are, what we're doing, our mind is drawn back to the object of our love. So if we can develop a loving relationship with the divine that way, our mind will automatically go there. Love has the power to gather those scattered seeds of our mind and put it into something as concentrated as a laser beam. The power of love allows us to get such strength and concentration that we can accomplish superhuman feats, including the realization of God. If a mother can save her child by lifting up a 1,000-pound car, that love will also bring us to realizing God. It's the same concentration, the same desire, the same power of the will that is used to realize God. When we love somebody, we want to talk to them all the time. We want to be with them all the time. When we hear about someone we love, we go, well, that's right. They're talking about. And when someone speaks ill of that, what we love, God help them. How dare you talk about my dog that way? How dare you talk about my convent that way? It's like, no. And it also gives us great strength of mind. When, in my humble opinion, the greatest composer who ever lived, one of the greatest minds that ever touched the planet was Mozart. He was asked once about what is it that makes a genius. And he said, love, love, love. That he could do his superhuman, unbelievable work without one correction on any of his manuscripts. I've seen them. It's like, you've got to be kidding me. Not one change, maybe 50, 60 instruments in there. Not one change. And have it all done by the age of 32. Love, love, love gives us that power. Love itself concentrates the mind. It gives us a desire to think about what we love. The power of love puts all of our stray thoughts aside, and then we can rest in what our mind is drawn to. The path of love is also a very practical approach. It gives us very simple things we can do all the time. And that's really helpful, to have little practices that we can do, and we just keep them to ourselves. Those little things we do all by ourselves, and no one has to know. One simple thing is just think of God. Think of God all the time. Swami Pravrajika, let me quote my guru, said, the more you think of God, the more you love him. And the more you will find how intensely God loves you. We often think how hard it is to realize God and to think and love God. But we're not thinking about how much the divine is calling us and how much God is loving us. When we get a little glimpse, when someone moves the curtain a little bit, and you get that ray of love coming towards you, you're hooked. It's like someone's giving you that cocaine, baby. You cannot stay away from it. It'll keep calling you back. That divine sweetness that we feel. So Swami Pravrajika said, you do not have to pray for happiness to be given to you. You will find sweetness as you approach God, for that is his very nature. And his guru, Swami Brahmananda, said, the easiest method of realization is to remember God constantly. He said, even as a person welcomes their friend with food and drink and conversation, he said, keep God in your thoughts. Entertain him with your thoughts. Converse freely with him. Know, he says him, know her, as your very own. And you will find peace in him. And peace, of course, is the great treasure. Having a peaceful heart, a peaceful mind. Nothing gives us that kind of joy or freedom than sheer peace in our own minds. I highly recommend The Eternal Companion, and I highly recommend a book called The Practice of the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence. Brother Lawrence was a 17th century, very simple ex-soldier Cistercian monk. He was not a lettered man, so of course they put him down where he wouldn't do anything and get in the way. He was down there in the pantry where he would wash the pots and pans and peel potatoes. And then what he learned was by constantly thinking of God, constantly praying, just thinking God all the time, that he truly became one of the greatest saints that the Christian church has ever had. He said the most important thing was to have a habit of conversing lovingly with God at all times, at every moment, without rules, without measures. It's like whatever we have a conversation with God, we don't have rules. We don't have times, places, or the appropriate things to say to God because you might offend her or him. That doesn't work. There's no offense. All times and all places, no matter where we find ourselves, keep up that conversation. Because if we create an artificial barrier between us and the divine, we just hurt ourselves. Create this easy conversation like, what are you doing? What's going on out there? Is this what you want me to go through? Really? All right. Okay, I'm complaining, registering complaint. We also start to need to change our pattern of thinking. And that really helps when we develop this habit of thinking about God, because that very practice can really reorient our thought so that our old patterns of thinking become, without us even becoming consciously aware of it, it gradually shifts. Mental habits are so powerful. Holy Mother, Sri Sarada Devi said, just see the power of habit. By the law of habit, a person attains realization by the continuous practice of japa, another perfect practice, because it's something we could do all the time in every place. It's a very, very doable spiritual practice. You can do it anywhere. Do it in the car, do it when you walk, do it while you're walking up a flight of stairs, do it while you're taking a shower. You can do it while you're riding your bike. You can do it any place at any time. Just that continual practice of japa can actually change us, I believe, in a cellular level. It just reorients us constantly. Holy Mother said, practice japa. Through that you will attain everything. Everything. I mean, that sounds good to me. That's something I can do. It's like those syllables, keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. Swami Shivananda Mahapurush Maharaj said, he was a great believer in two things, prayer and japa, this continual practice. He said, if you keep doing japa, you will begin to feel his grace. And it is that grace that will help you to concentrate your mind. And then you will really feel joy within. And that's when things get easier. That's when we're kind of over the hump. When we begin to feel that joy within, then we don't feel like we're trying to push that bicycle up the hill. Then we're on an easier downhill coast, and then everything sort of falls into place. That divine love that we're always seeking, it's always there. We just have not been able to access it because of the clouding of our own minds. Rumi has this great sentence, and it says, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against that love. It's like we have to really look at their own barriers that we've put up, thinking that we have to have these artificial conversations, artificial prayers of someone else's making with the divine. It has to be our own. It has to be something that speaks, that we can use our own language in our own way, having our own relationship, and then we can really move forward. Because any artificial barriers, it's going to hit us in the Adam's apple. It needs to be real to us. That's all spiritual yoga, all spiritual paths, no matter of what religion. Every yoga begins with this purification of the heart. And there's nothing like japa and prayer to purify the heart. Without this purification, it's just philosophy. It's not a spiritual life. And if it isn't real to us, it won't be there for us when we need it. So it has to be, whatever our spiritual practice is, we have to internalize it so it becomes real for us, so it can be there when we need it, and then it becomes part of who we are. We don't have to try to do something. It's who we are. Everything is kind of stamped with that stamp of our spiritual life. Prayer is also extremely important. It's a very easy spiritual practice. Prayer doesn't mean, give me this, give me that, and then we'll talk. You do that, and if you do that too, that's great. I'll give you a bonus point, and then we'll begin our relationship. Okay, prove to me that you can do this, and then we'll start. It doesn't work like that. It's got to be real. It can't be bookkeeping. It's got to be. Let's talk about where I am and where I'd like to be. Can you help me with that, please? How do I do it? Please, how do I purify my mind? Just whatever problems you have, bring it to them. Say, what am I supposed to do with this? Okay? Please help me with this. But whatever you say, whatever your prayer is, make it real. Make it personal. Make it authentic to you, however that may be. And we don't need an instruction manual on how to pray. It's not like trying to figure out how to use my iPhone or the car. Just make it as real and as authentic as you can. We often don't notice it, but when we do pray, we concentrate our mind, and that's another way to really concentrate the mind. Prayer is actually just a technique of concentration, but it won't work unless it's true to who we are and true to actually the reality of what we want out of it. Ramakrishna repeatedly say, pray to the Lord with a yearning heart, and you will surely find him. And he said, sincere prayer will absolutely, certainly bring a response. He couldn't tell an untruth. He couldn't do it. So if we do it, we're going to get the results, if that's really what we want. So we have to ask, he's also saying sincere. So we also have to really look at ourselves and say, am I being sincere in this? Is this really what I want? Or am I divided in what I say I want or I think I want and really what I'm going for? That's what we have to watch out for. We have to mon mokek. The words and the heart have to be going in the same direction, same thing. Prayer leads us to yearning for God, and that's the big goalpost. Vyakalata. What is it? How do you say it in Bengali? Bekwal. That is the great thing. That it is when we have that yearning for God. That's what Ramakrishna said is the rosy dawn before the sun of realization comes. So when we get that yearning, prayer can lead to yearning. Constant recollectedness of God leads us to yearning. Prayerfulness, yearning, japa. When we get a little bit of that sweetness, you have a piece of chocolate, it's like, oh, that's good, but more is better. When we get that, it's like, I want more. Then we know that we're going in the right direction. And that's when we know we've actually received, then when the grace of God is, we've put up our sails and the breeze of grace is growing. Grace? Yeah, breeze of grace. I didn't say glaze, grace, yes. So some other things that we can do, you know how it is when you've had too much coffee in the morning? Yeah. Some other things that we can do to attain love of God, or to give us even a fulfilling spiritual practice is, Ramakrishna said, repeat God's name and sing his glories, and keep holy company. Okay, 3 things. Okay, you've kept holy company, you've showed up online, you've showed up, you're keeping holy company. You could be at the mall, you could be, working on your Halloween costume, you could be doing all sorts of things. You could watch a movie, television, but you chose here to put your mind at a higher level. It's not easy getting here. Oh my God. You've got to find parking or take a taxi. It's not easy getting here. Online, you're still in your PJs, I know. But still, you've made the effort to get that connection and to listen. I get it. You have your coffee. I get it. But you've done number 3. What about the other ones? You notice in the Gospel of Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna is continually breaking into song, dancing. One of his great teaching techniques is the particular songs that he sings. Every time. And we can also use the power of music to put our minds in a higher level. Remember, Bharat Maharaj said, every love song can be sung to God. Every song. She loves you, yeah. All these songs. Every song that we have can go towards God. Sing bhajans, they're great. They're easy to remember. But the musical part of our brain is the most powerful part of our brain. It's located in the deepest part of our brain, which we share with whales and dolphins. It's in a different part of our brain than the rest of the cognitive mind, which is why Alzheimer's people can still sing songs from their childhood. They can do that. They can sing. They may not be able to talk, but they can sing. People coming out of a coma may not be able to talk, but they can sing. If we can get our musical memory wrapped into something that reminds us of God, it's a real plus, because that memory will keep on going. It's so much better than the stupid commercial that we have going through our mind, or some stupid self-defeating maxim that we tell ourselves. I can't do this. I'm not good at that. I should be doing this, but I didn't do that. I'm such a this. Get rid of that. Sing to God. Sing to the divine. You know, I'm sorry we don't do a lot of dancing here in the Vedanta Society. We just don't. We're kind of boring people that way. But, you know, not even in India, they don't do it at the monks, except at special occasions, and the monks go and have fun. Yeah, I know. But humans are meant to sing. Humans are meant to sing. And when we use that power within us, then we find a lot of joy. And singing bhajans, to a great way. Sing divine songs. Sing things that would mean something to us and direct it to God. We don't have to, who doesn't sing in the shower? Sing in the car. We sing in the car. Sing to God. Sing to God. We're meant to sing. Another thing we can do, if we can't concentrate well, at least we can offer a flower. We can offer a flower at our shrine. For that short period of time, we've concentrated our mind, we've done something physical, and that's made an impression on our mind. If we don't have any flowers, offer a pumpkin, offer some food. If you don't even want to do that, mentally think of offering a beautiful, soft, fragrant flower, your favorite color, and offer that. Offer some incense, offer light, offer a song. But keep that part of your mind engaged in something that brings you closer to our real nature, to the divine. Swami Tyagananda once gave this wonderful talk on how to keep love alive. He said, when people are married a long time, they try to keep love alive, and they say, honey. They call each other sweetie or darling. So we can do that too. We don't have to be extremely distant. We can create our own relationship. We have to do what we can to renew our relationship, to keep love alive, to sing a new song, to bring a new flower, to have a new way to relate. Swami Pravrajika said, when you leave your room, look at your holy picture, look at your shrine and say, okay, bye, I'll be back. Or when you come back, greet the Lord again. It's a small thing, but it makes an impression on the mind. Those pictures that we have here, they're not like pictures. They're the real presence of the Lord. When we remember that, and when you say something, they give you an answer, then you really realize they're not pictures. They're the living presence of the divine. And having that relationship allows us to see that living reality. It's a small step, but it gives you an unexpected joy you wouldn't expect. I highly recommend it. You know, we had a nun in Hollywood, Bhakti Prana, who could be very annoying because she constantly muttered to herself, I don't understand why we're doing all this. Why are they, even in the sannyasa vows, she was sitting behind me on the couch going, I don't understand what page that's on. It's like, oh my God. So one of our nuns at that time was in Hollywood, and she was coming out of her room, and she heard Bhakti Prana talking yet again to herself, and she was mumbling this and that, mumbling this and that. And she said, I'm just going to stand here and listen to what she's saying. And it turned out that she was complaining to Ramakrishna. My arthritis is so bad, I don't know how I'm going to get from here to the temple. I guess I'm going to just have to drive there. I need to go and drive there. I don't know why you make it so hard for me, but I'm going to do it. And she was so inspired. This nun that she'd been kvetching about for all these years had such a relationship that she felt that she could complain to Sri Ramakrishna about why her arthritis was so bad. What a wonderful way to keep our minds in God. Complain to him. Who else are you going to complain to? I remember Swami Tyagananda told me that he went up to visit Swami Vivedishananda up in Seattle. And things in Seattle were really rocky. There was no money. It was very rough going up there. It was a very tough time. There were very few devotees, very few supports of the center, and he really didn't know what to do to keep the work even going up there. So he told Swami Shraddhananda, he said, I'm praying to Thakur to bring some money. And Swami Shraddhananda said, how could you do that? Thakur could not even touch money, and you're praying to him for money? And he said, who else can I talk to? And he said, oh my God, of course. The simplicity, the innocence, the guilelessness, to have such a heartfelt prayer. Thakur, you will have to, if the work is continue, you will have to bring money. And of course it did. But I mean, we judge from the outside. But what a simple, heartfelt prayer. You know, loving God is one of the best ways that we can do to find peace and strength in this storm of life. And if we have been through a storm, there'll probably be many more storms in the future. Many more. But in that storm, we need something within us that will give us support and strength, and something that we feel that will be there for us when everything else leaves us. Because everything else is born and will die. Everything that we think that we can hold on to, we cannot hold on to. The only one thing in this entire universe that we can ever hold on to is the Lord. Or call it the Divine Mother, or call it the Atman. Doesn't matter. But that's the only thing we can hold on to. And the storms will ever increase in this world. That is the point of loving God. And the grace that it gives us will make our lives so much sweeter. And it will sweeten not only our life, but those around us. And for that, we can only be grateful. Thank you.
My name is Mira.
Hi, Mira.
Thank you so much, and I love you. Don't get jealous. I love all you too. I mean that. I really mean that. And I do rest my mind on God and try to make every action, a service to God, keeping in mind all of that. And that's all beautiful, but deep down, I have an ugly truth. God has a great sense of humor and has given me many beautiful experiences to know, to see white light, to expand my consciousness, to go in the black hole, my heart. And yet, God's very funny, because I'm a slow learner. There's a part of me, when you said realization, I'm given knowledge, the gift of coming here, the gift of the ability to know love is not what you do, it's what you are. Mm-hmm. The gift of having luxury and wonderful things constantly and manifesting, coming my way. And yet there's a part of me that knows deep down I'm not completely a believer in God.
Doesn't matter. I once told Swami Pravrajika, I said, I don't have a lot of faith. And he said, you won't. You won't until you realize God. But I can say one thing. As you continue your spiritual life, as you continue your spiritual break, your sadhana, whatever it may be, it will become clearer and clearer and clearer. And it will become more real to you than the nose on your face. It will be as obvious to you as the air you take into your lungs. It will become so real to you that everything else sort of pulls back.
How do you surrender?
I promise you that.
How do you surrender? How do you go to that next level?
I don't. I fight. I argue. I contend. And then when they batter me down, I say, okay, I give up. You know best, you say. And then you find out it was the way it had to go. I took probably 45 years ago, I got so mad at a nun leaving the convent, I picked up a pillow and threw it at Ramakrishna. Said, is this your idea of a good time? Now I don't want to hurt the picture or but no, it's true. No one comes in with 100% faith until you start getting somewhere. And then it becomes more and more real. Then you realize it's not a figment of your imagination. Then you realize, no, this is real. This is absolutely real. But you have to unfurl your sails, and that's the whole thing with the purification of the mind. Doing the spiritual practice so that, and it seems like we're just chugging along, that's not getting anywhere. And then all of a sudden, they put out some breadcrumbs for you. They really do.
Thank you.
And then it's like, okay, I dig these breadcrumbs. They're good. They got garlic in them.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
In the back.
Thank you, Mataji. Great talk. My name is Paritosh. Just, I was reflecting, I think I read somewhere, Lord Krishna said somewhere that I'm easy to give you liberation, but hard to give you love of divine love.
That's one of the Ramakrishna quotes that, but I hesitate indeed to give pure love.
Right. Can you explain a little bit?
Well, I don't mind a little impure love, as far as like if there has some ego in it. Ego is what gives impurity. If there's some slight distinction between my ego and the Lord. But even Sri Ramakrishna said, do I need to know how many bottles of wine there are in the grog shop? Just one bottle will get me drunk. That's all we need. We don't need to have the full capacity. We don't need to have the pure love that the gopis in Vrindavan had. I mean, that would be great. But I'll be grateful to have enough love to make me realize that the divine love coming at us is absolutely intoxicating, and that's all we need to keep going in our spiritual life. And that guides us forward. If we keep going on, it isn't like the Lord doesn't want us to have divine love. It isn't like you say, nah, you don't qualify. Not at all. Not at all. That is something, or else Sri Ramakrishna wouldn't say, bhakti is the one essential thing. He would not have said that. And he says that repeatedly throughout the gospel.
Okay, thank you.
Brother.
Could you give us some personal experiences, anecdotes of the Swamis you have met where they exemplified this bhakti in their lives or in their words? You gave us a few, you told us a few, but you met Shraddhanandaji, you met so many others, Asheshanandaji, of course, Prabhavanandaji and others. A few more maybe?
I'm thinking of when Swami Prabhavananda was in the living room of the Santa Barbara Convent. And some very close devotees, in fact, Arupaishananda's parents, came in. And his mother, Sita, came in and said, Swami, you're all alone here. She was expecting a group of devotees to be sitting around here, and he looked up at her and said, I am never alone. Mm-hmm. And everyone just went, mm-hmm. He never thought of any, he said, if I try to do something myself, it always fails. He said, if I leave it to Maharaj, everything for him was Swami Brahmananda. When I leave it to Maharaj, then everything happens as it should. And they used to say in Bellarmont, that Abani gets everything he wants. Swami Prabhavananda. But that was because the minute he pulled, a number of times, he was trying to do something, and then he'd pull back and leave it to Maharaj, then unexpected things would happen, and everything would go in the right direction. A number of times they thought, this temple, we're going to have to close the temple down, or we can't. The Hollywood temple was not finished yet, but they'd run out of the money. And the one thing they made him said, never borrow money, ever. So it was like, okay, we're going to have to board up the windows. left it to Maharaj. He went and cried, Maharaj, is this what you want to happen? And unexpectedly, his actress walked in, handed him some money. It was exact amount, to the penny, exact amount, to the dollar of what they needed to finish the temple. That absolute faith and surrender. Swami Tyagananda, I think I told this last time, but I'm going to repeat it, was a great Upanishad scholar, even from the time that he joined. He was a philosopher, a poet, what a mind. And but he loved the Upanishads above all. So he was a disciple of Mahapurush Maharaj. And so one day he went into Mahapurushji when all the brahmacharis went in and said, Maharaj, would it be okay? So Shivananda, Mahapurush Maharaj, would it be okay? I would like to, instead of my mantra, I want to just meditate on Om, repeat Om. Is that okay? And he looked at him and he went, all right. So Swami Tyagananda said, great, that's good. And then for the next days after that, whenever he walked in the room to make pranam, Mahapurush Maharaj would turn his face away. When he'd ask him a question, he wouldn't answer. So after a few days of the ice treatment, he asked Swami Pravrajika, his attendant, what's wrong with Maharaj? Why is he treating me so coldly? And Swami Pravrajika Shankar Maharaj said, you fool! He has given you the holy mantra and you've refused to use it? You fall at his feet and ask forgiveness. And so Swami Tyagananda was like, and he ran to him, fell at his feet and said, Maharaj, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me. And Mahapurush Maharaj said, all right, you come with me. So he took him down to Thakur's temple. It might have even been the old temple at that point, the old shrine. And he said, you stand before Thakur and pray. Thakur, please give me love. Please give me devotion. Give me faith. Please give me jnana. Every day you pray like that with your whole heart, pray. Till the end of his days, even when he had to be wheeled in by a wheelchair, he would go into the shrine in Sacramento and stand and be like this, standing when he could, standing like that very intently. At the end of his life, he was in terrible pain. And he would go, Thakur, Thakur, Mahapurush, Mahapurush, Thakur, Thakur, Mahapurush, Mahapurush. That was it. All he could do. All he could do. Was he hanging on to the Upanishads? No. It was Thakur and his Gurudev. Thakur and his Gurudev. Swami Sheshananda would rarely talk about devotion because maybe he thought that we needed to strengthen ourselves a little bit. So he talked about Shankara and Heisenberg. And, oh my God, the other thing. But when he did talk about Mother, I remember once, with Santa Barbara would come and visit him, and we would be careful to sit in the second row because the first row got way too much of his attention. So it was a night class, and as the night class, the Upanishads class, we're supposed to start at 8 p.m., which of course they never did because he was never on time for anything. Many a red light had to be run in order for him to make the plane. I remember once he had 40 minutes to catch a plane. He was sitting in the back in the car front, and I know the guy who was driving the car, and he was like that. And he said, the man was starting to brake, and he looked up, he had a red light, and he went, make that light. And he ran red lights all the way through to the airport till he could get on the plane. He was never on time. So 8:30, you could hear him going, still at 8 o'clock class, going back and forth. And then you hear the water going, shh. Okay, he's washed his hands, great. It's like, okay. here we go. So, the class could start at 8:30, quarter of. And he was old, and the room was small and overheated. This is big compared to that. So the guy right in front of me was going like, deadly. Swami Sheshananda, I demand your complete attention. I have not come to speak to the wall. You are very rude in this country to a visitor. He said, I demand your complete attention because I have touched the feet of Holy Mother. It's like, okay then. But to him, it wasn't like because this is who I am, because he had touched the feet of Holy Mother. Mrs. Vera Edwards, who was always called nothing but Mrs. Vera Edwards. For the 50 years she served him, she was entirely Mrs. Vera Edwards. She'd been widowed probably 50 years too. Anyway, Mrs. Vera Edwards. So I said, did he ever talk about any of his spiritual experiences? And she said, once she was, it was their retreat at Scappoose, and she was kind of sitting on the steps outside, and the door behind her in one of the cottages where Swami Sheshananda was unexpectedly open. She said, and I felt like this air coming out of it. It's like, what's that? And then he came out like that. And he said, she looked at him and he went, Mother's been here. Mother is here. Mother is here. And he was not even able to talk at that point. Mother is here. But the other thing I didn't realize until much later was I would ask him a question. Here's one to begin with. I had the most remarkable experience of not remembering. I had visited him the first time in June of 1977. And that was when I just decided to join the convent. I'd gone through, do I not? Do I don't not? Because I liked my career, I liked what I was gonna do, I had great plans, but then I was in a really bad car accident. And when I was in that car accident, and I thought for a while I was a paraplegic from the neck down because I couldn't move my fingers or their toes, and they thought my neck might be broken. And the first thing that came to mind was, now you can't be a nun. And I thought, that's a hell of a time to think about it. Now that you're a paraplegic, you ought to thought about that earlier. I mean, I had, but I was having such a great time going out and going to art openings, going to movies and stuff like that. Why would you want to join the convent when you could, still go to art openings, go to movies? So at that moment, I thought, wow, now I can't be a nun. I can't move my fingers. I'm going to be in a wheelchair the rest of my life. And then I thought, if I get out of this alive, I think I really want to become a nun, because this obviously is much more important than I've allowed my conscious mind to think about. So I had to go through a lot of rehab and all that. So the following year, by June, it's like, okay, talk to Swami Tyagananda, got his approval to join, come in September. So I visited Portland, and I wanted to get the blessings of Swami Sheshananda. And I had completely forgotten this until I was looking a few months ago for this old thing that I'd written, and I couldn't remember it. And I wanted a quote that I'd used that, and I was like digging up some old papers, and I dragged this thing out that had been typed on onion skin paper. I mean, typed with a typewriter. I went, what is that? And I opened it up. I went, oh my God. I must have kept notes on my first meeting with Swami Sheshananda. When I got back to California, I must have taken it to my work early and typed it up before anyone came in, because it was one of those old electric typewriters, where they give M 3 spaces and an N 2 spaces and all of that. It's like, whoa. And I looked at it, and I had almost no memory of it whatsoever. And I looked at it, I said, Swami, I've decided to join the convent. Has anyone told you about that? No, I did not. No. You were going to become a nun. You were going to join the convent. Yes. You're joining? Where? But Sarada Convent, Santa Barbara. Oh, Santa Barbara. Very good. Very good. Mother is there. Good. And then I said, Swami, do you have any advice for me? And I realized much later what went into this process. He put his head down and went, that went on for at least 10 minutes. And I thought he should have a whole list, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, of whole things like you better do this, do not do this, do this, do. Looked up and said, love Holy Mother. And in my notes I said I kept waiting for him to say something else, but it wasn't coming. So I said after a while, Swami, do you have anything, do you want to add to that or how to do that? And then he gave his whole list. And things, he said, Guru Bhakti is very important, other things, but it was left all that time. It's like, why should it take that long to come up with 2 words, a noun and a verb? And then I realized much later when I'd ask him questions, and he told this later to Mrs. Vera Edwards, that he never answered anything until he talked directly to Holy Mother. So you could sit there in that electric chair for 20 minutes while he's waiting for the signal to come in. Meanwhile, you're like, oh my God, what's coming down the pike there? But then when he says something, it had such incredible power to it. And he would say something like, I brought up a real problem to him, and he went, are you doing that? After a long wait. And I went, yeah? But how's that? It's like, no, do not do that. There's no way he could have known that. And no way that I could have thought that was a problem. Don't do that. Okay then, I won't. That power from that personal connection. And the good thing is that when we continue our spiritual life, we do get answers. We do get answers. We really do. So I think that's about all I can do.
Yes, another question?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Joe.
Hi, Joe.
My question is, it's easy for me to love and protect like an ant or a small animal. It's more difficult for certain humans, and then for God, that seems almost to where to begin, from the top down or the bottom up, or am I looking at
Both ways. Both ways. See the divine in those little creatures you're trying to protect. See the divine in every person you encounter. I once had this funny experience. I don't know if I told y'all that last time, but I had this, I was working in the bookstore, and I had this really annoying couple come in. And I was deep into the Ramayana because I'm a real Rama Bhakta too. Rama, my guy. I love that guy. People, you love Hanuman? I love him, but I love Rama. Yeah. I don't have to. One of the senior nuns up there, Madhavaprana in San Francisco, said, "You are a defender of Rama." I said, "I am not a defender. I'm a lover of Rama." Okay, let's get that straight. So I was deep into the Ramayana. And this couple came in, and I was completely grossed out. They were dirty, and they were unkempt, which I normally don't care of. I mean, look at my dog. But they were also, the language that they were speaking was not only rough, but also derogatory. It was insulting. And of all things, they walked into the place. They had no idea I was a nun. I was just, God knows what I was wearing, but it wasn't this. And I was just, it's unpacking books can be really dirty. So I was probably wearing jeans and maybe a sweatshirt or something like that. So I was just doing my job, blah, blah, blah. And these people come in, and they both apparently been in Catholic school or had some experience with the Catholic Church, and they were railing about priests and nuns, and you know what they do. It was gross. And then they were like, "How much is that? Why should I do that? Don't you have any water around here?" I said, "Well, And I caught myself being like, who are they to come in like that? And I went, "What, girlfriend? You're talking to think yourself like that? You just stop that." So I went, and I thought, Rama and Sita have come in disguise. Wow. Cool disguise. I would not have expected the VW bus, right? So they come in, and I thought, wow, that's awesome. And they said, isn't there any water around here? I said, yeah, there's actually a drinking fountain, but can I bring you some water? I've got some here in the back. And they went, yeah, that'd be great. So I brought each of them a nice glass of water, and I said, are you guys hungry? I've got some graham crackers in the back. Oh, that'd be great. We haven't eaten. So I brought them a little plate and served them some graham crackers and said, you know, you must be traveling. Yeah, where can we go around here? I said, well, you know, there's places here, places there, beautiful beach. You can go for a walk on the beach. No one charges you, free parking, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like talking more to them. And then I began to feel rather motherly towards them, really protective of them. And when my vision changed, everything revolved in me. And the best part is it revolved in them too. Then they started like, rather than seeing me as someone who was going to treat them in a disrespectful way, which I did, just by my own thoughts, that they started warming up to me. And so we had this very enjoyable conversation. And they want to know where to go and how to find entertainment and what places were cheap. And it was really nice. And it was a really good experience for me. It was a good learning lesson for me. So, you know, they went on their merry way. I went down and continued my work. About 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I got this random call from these people. Hey, we really enjoyed our time with you this afternoon. They were calling it the General Vedanta Society number before mine got wiped out by the mudslide. And I said, it was really nice meeting you. Have you found a place? Yeah, we're going to go out drinking and dancing tonight. Would you like to come with us? I said, you know, that's the sweetest offer I've gotten all week. But you know, I'm a nun. You're a nun? Yeah, I'm a nun, and actually, so I'm getting ready to go to Vespers. But I do hope you'll stop on your way back. You're a nun? Yeah, it's cool, all right. So that really helped me. And it's often we prejudge people. I had this guy that I was singing with, and his name was Gil. Fantastic man. And every time we go out for break, he didn't know what I did for a living. I didn't know what he did for a living. I mean, we just went there and sang. We was singing great sacred music. So we would share a lemon lift tea bag. And so he said, you know, I've been singing with you all these years. I don't know what you do for a living. And I said, Gil, you're not going to believe this one. I said, I'm a Hindu nun, and he turned white as a sheet. And he said, I didn't know there was such a thing. You're kidding, first he said. I said, no, I'm not kidding. I grabbed a tenor who had sung up at the temple. I said, Danny, am I a Hindu nun? Oh, yeah, she's a Hindu nun, all right. I'm the real thing. So, and he said, he obviously got very uncomfortable. And he said, and then he kind of looked at me, and I saw him put his guard down. And he said, well, actually, I'm a cardiologist, and I spend a month in Bombay every year doing free heart surgeries. And I said, that's awesome. He said, I'm in Campus Crusade for Christ. And my guard went up because I went, Christian fundamentalist. And instead, he said, I see I have a lot to learn from you. And I felt like such a bigot. I had been expecting him to be bigoted, and I was bigoted. I was going, Christian fundamentalist. He was noble-hearted, and I was the one who closed up. That was a great lesson for me. And he and I became very good friends. And I became friends with a lot of people across the political aisle, because you don't ask people their affiliation when you sing. You're just singing sacred music together. So I think the only way we can be happy is to not prejudge, because every time I've done it, I've learned, baby, you're such a fool. So start from everywhere you can possibly find. See divinity first. See Rama and Sita, or your favorite version of divinity in that being.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you so much for your talk. My name is Kahoki. Since you mentioned song and dance, I'm an Indian classical dancer.
Oh, fantastic.
And thank you. And yesterday I was asked to present an original piece to a panel of critics. I didn't apply for it. People kept asking me for it to do it, and so I had a piece in mind, but then my foot got injured, and so I didn't even know if I could perform. And then they asked me to present something sitting down, and the only thing that I could think of that could be conducive to that sort of environment was a movement meditation that I did to the Bhagavad Gita.
Nice.
And I let them know that it's not a formal choreography, so I'm not sure if it's even applicable to this event, but I did it anyway. And it's hard to explain what that dance feels like, because it's not very much a dance, and I truly don't even know what I'm trying to show, because it's all just like slokas of the Gita, and I'm just doing stuff. Basically, that's what it feels like. The reviews were glowing, and there
Fantastic.
was one question that was, one person asked me, were you Krishna or were you? And I had no idea how to respond to that, and I didn't know how to answer it really. But one answer that came to my mind was, I felt that I had no place in this dance, and so I just kind of did what I had to do.
That's it, exactly.
So I don't know. The thought just has never come to me, and I just want to know, is there any way to, I guess...
I don't know that there's any conscious way to do it, except to sort of pray to get I always pray to get myself out of the way.
Yeah.
And I can say from performing music, the times that have been the most elevating for me, where I feel like I've gotten out of the way, was when somehow, when you're doing the music worships the music. The music worships God. And you're just somewhere in this music, but the you has just kind of dissolved into the music. And that's when you really have incredible joy in your heart, because that ego is such a painful thing. So when that gets out of the way as much as is possible for us, then it really becomes a worship.
So thank you.
How wonderful to be able to do that.
It was sort of like a glimpse into that, because the piece was about 9 minutes, but I felt the ego kind of creeping up because we had to sit in the panel and get the feedback, and I was like, please give me good reviews.
Yeah.
So,
but the longer we can keep it at bay, and I've never consciously been able to do it except to pray about it, but then when you find yourself in the middle of the experience, it's like you're realizing what a joyful thing that is. That's wonderful. What a gift.
Thank you.
What a wonderful way to worship the divine.
Thank you so much.
That's a gift. Ichama. Over.
Thank you very much.
Shall I close with a chant? Is that the appropriate? Please join me. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamataya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman flows all that is. From Brahman flows all, yet Brahman remains the same. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all.